Hello, everybody. It is Professor Parrish, and we are on week 5 of English 122. So I've got our little modules pulled up here on the homepage. Module 5 is going to open up on January 29th, and you guys will be able to go ahead and start working on it by then. So I wanted to go ahead and record the video for this. So if we look at our guide here, I'm going to put the lecture video on here. The readings for this week are over tone and style on pages 163 to 165. Tone being the mood of writing and style being how it's written, which we'll go over very soon. And then there's a few stories to look at. A Clean, Well-Lighted Place on pages 166 to 168, Barn Burning on 169 to 182, and Writing Effectively 190 to 192. Obviously, we're going to review the materials and the resources. And then you have 2 assignments for this week, the Tone and Style Quiz and the Discussion Forum 5. So looking at our discussion forum, if we go ahead and look at that, there are these 2 stories that I just talked about. So they're both describing Hemingway and Faulkner's style, and they are different. I like Hemingway and I like Faulkner, so I'm curious to know how you differentiate the 2. But basically, I'm going to ask, how would you describe Hemingway's style? How would you describe Faulkner's? Which do you prefer and why? And you can detail that in the discussion forum below. As for the style and tone quiz, it will be over the presentation we're about to go over. As always, it is not timed. There are 10 points to this quiz, and so you should be able to do it. It should be pretty quick as long as you have the PowerPoint to kind of go off of, right? So looking at tone and style, looking at mainly tone in this, and I'll kind of zoom out so we can see it better. With tone helps us to understand the attitude or the mood of a piece. And what's probably the most interesting is that stories are not limited to just one tone at all. They can have several different tones, and it can kind of vary as you go through the story. A story might start out with a very lighthearted tone, and then as you get deeper into the situation, it can become chaotic or erratic or get very serious and dark and dramatic as it goes. So obviously there's a thing called tonal whiplash that you want to avoid as a writer. You don't want to have a story start out really happy and then suddenly like whiplash, ka-cha, and then it changes tones, right? You want to gradually ease your audience into that tonal shift as it goes. And tonal shifts can make stories more complex, more rich, more interesting. But style is one of the indications that helps you to identify the tone. And it helps writers seem very different. So some writers like Chuck Palahniuk, who writes Fight Club, he often writes in the second person point of view. He writes very dark humor, black comedy, very, very dramatic, but also kind of morbidly humorous pieces. And his writing style is very different than, let's say, Charles Dickens, right? Who may have some dark humor, but it's not really, it's a much more traditional old Victorian literature style than Chuck Palahniuk. So usually you can help identify writers by their style. So for example, Stephen King, we can talk about him with that slide in this one here. Stephen King is often known for having very long dialogues with characters, and that kind of relates to this term diction. Diction is the choice of words. So for example, you can have minimalism, which is flat, laid back, and unemotional. I would say Kurt Vonnegut is a great example of minimalism. Slaughterhouse-Five is one of my favorite books, and it's very minimalist. His writing is very dry, and at times, like his writing, it's very understated. He'll use like one sentence that will have so much meaning and emotion behind it, but it's almost like when you read it at first, that emotion doesn't impact you until later on in the story, and then you realize, oh, okay. So in Slaughterhouse-Five, there's a phrase, "so it goes." And as you go through the story, "so it goes" gets much more emotional meaning to it. There's also irony, which irony is very hard to describe. And our textbook can sometimes be interesting with irony. Irony, I feel like people get it wrong a lot, but our book defines it as a literary device in which the writer says one thing and means the opposite. And then verbal irony is when the speaker or writer says the opposite of what is intended, right? So they may say one thing and then mean the exact opposite with it. Usually like it's connected with sarcasm sometimes, right? And that's our third term here, sarcasm, which is conspicuously a bitter form of irony that's supposed to mock something, right? Which we all have heard sarcasm at least once in our life, I'm sure. Continuing on with irony, there's also dramatic irony, where the reader understands the implications, but the character does not. So the reader may understand the the irony of the situation, but the character doesn't get it, right? And then there's cosmic irony, which is a situation that emphasizes the discrepancy or the differences between what the characters need and what they get. So a great example of cosmic irony is the expectation versus reality scene in 500 Days of Summer, where Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, he has this expectation of how his date with this girl will go, and then we side by side get to see as the audience how it actually goes compared to his expectation. And it's a lot of fun. It's a good time. Good times all around, right? But yeah, so those are the terms that are dealing with tone. They will be used on your quiz, so make sure that you have this PowerPoint downloaded for that. But yeah, that is the basic notes for this week on tone and style. It's a pretty short week, so should be good. Next week, we're going to talk about the paper. So if you want to go ahead and look a week ahead at the fiction analysis pre-writing assignment, we're going to go all over that next week in next week's video. But if you want to go ahead and check it out, you are welcome to. So as always, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon with the video for English 122 week 6. Bye.